Now, at the beginning of this topic, you will recall I'd mentioned that the research done by positive psychology shows that 90% of our long-term state of well-being is an inside job, whereas only 10% is based on our environmental factors. Now, these last three topics have lended support to this notion, and yes, the work we have been doing up until now has largely been within emotional agility, paying attention to our emotions, getting to know our base fears, getting to know our thoughts, our inner voices, changing the meaning to change the feeling. These are the aspects that impact on our long-term state of well-being. I'm also not saying we're not allowed to enjoy the short-term pleasures in life. It's totally okay to do that. But it is also about being very aware as to why we want what we want in the short term and not relying on it for our long-term state of well-being. Now, in this topic, I would like to explore why we make comparisons and what is the relevance of the external reference points we use when making them. So, why do we compare ourselves to others? We have this habit of constantly evaluating our opinions and capabilities so we can better understand and define our identity. Usually it's to answer that big question, who am I? Now, as we are constantly evaluating ourselves, we need something else to reference ourselves to. You see, our minds are unable to judge or assess our own opinions and capabilities in absolute terms, either intrinsically or independently of the environment. We require external reference points, and since we live in a world populated by other life forms that look and behave a lot like us, those reference points revolve around other people, or their lifestyles they have, the cars they drive, the families they have, and even the holidays they go on. When we make social comparisons out of the desire to grow and improve ourselves, we're experiencing healthy comparisons. We are inspired, for example, by that leader or someone who has talents that we would like to learn and develop for ourselves. However, when we make social comparisons out of our fear and insecurity, then our comparisons become unhealthy. We begin to feel not good enough by this looming gap between what we feel we are and what we feel we should be in relation to our reference points. This is what happened to Mike in the earlier example, where he compared himself to his friends' lifestyles, the cars they had, and the houses they lived in. These became his reference points based on his fears and insecurities of low self-worth and inadequacy. Effectively, Mike was attaching his identity to these external reference points. Now, the reference points we can unconsciously choose are usually salient, in other words, noticeable and what we think is important. But the big question is, are they relevant? Are the lifestyles of Mike's friends relevant on which to base his identity? If he did not have the fears and insecurities, he would not feel he needed to keep up with them. He might have felt rather that his life was good enough and to live his own unique journey as Mike. Without questioning the relevance of his reference points, Mike assumed through his ladder of inference that he would be much happier if he had the same lifestyles. Maybe if Mike investigated his ladder of inference and noticed that he was only selecting the awesome stuff as reference points, not looking at other aspects of their lives, he might not have taken the action he did. Maybe his friends inherited some money, or maybe they work long hours so that they can afford this lifestyle, which really has no relevance to his personal journey. Mike did not question his selected reference points and assumed they were relevant to how he should evaluate his identity. Now, awareness around social comparisons is important. The first question to ask ourselves is, will my comparison grow me or slow me? Am I being inspired or am I feeling low self-esteem as a result? If it's the latter, then it's important to become aware of the reference points that we are comparing ourselves to and to ask ourselves, are they relevant to my own unique journey? Remind yourself that your ladder of inference is only selecting some of the data from the environment as a reference point, not all of it. And through that reflexive loop, the more we feel low esteem, the more we select data to reaffirm this. Comparing yourself to someone who has spent 30 years in the same industry as you, whilst you've only spent 10 years in that industry, is irrelevant. And if we do not realize this, we may be setting ourselves up for unhappiness as we are setting our reference points too high. This is best represented in the following diagram called the Ebbinghaus illusion. Now look at the two orange dots. Which looks bigger and which looks smaller? At first glance, the one on the right looks bigger than the one on the left. However, they are both the same size. This is what the unhealthy ego comparisons do to us. They make us feel smaller because of these larger, illusionary and irrelevant external reference points. The current environment will challenge our unhealthy comparisons by providing many irrelevant reference points which influence our thoughts about what will make us happy. For example, advertising sells happiness through that perfect happy family around that breakfast table, that perfect body, that perfect lifestyle, and subconsciously we compare ourselves to these images, feeling lower self-esteem, which drives our behavior to buy that product in the hope that we become happier. Research shows that just seeing your neighbor buy a new car increases the likelihood of you buying a new car. Other research has also shown that by increasing our TV viewing, it not only increases our spending, but it increases our estimate of others' wealth and decreases our estimate of our own wealth. There were studies that showed an increase in reading magazines and using social media reduces our self-esteem, all providing subconscious reference points against which we compare ourselves. With social media, we evaluate our opinions and hence our identity by the number of likes we get or the feedback we receive from complete strangers. So it is important to pay attention to our unhealthy ego comparisons and to be curious about our reference points as we ask ourselves, what are my reference points and are they relevant to my own identity and to my own journey in life? Now in the next topic, we will look at some of the exercises that we put into workbook 5 for you around this module. And as we finish off this topic, I leave you with a wonderful quote by Steve Furtick. The reason we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reel. So I will see you in the next topic, and until then, take care and stay aware.